Scary
to be
to
looking at
be
some of your
on the
faces. You know
your
your
face.
faces? Beautiful
Beautiful
as
as well.
always. So good
So good
afternoon,
afternoon,
everybody.
everybody.
My
My
name
name
is
is Chiesa
Chiesa Elaine
Elaine.
Makuro, but most
Most
people
people
call
call
me
me
Elaine.
Elaine.
And
And
today
today
I am
I'm
going to
gonna
be your
be
moderator.
moderating.
Now
Now
I
I
know
know
you're
you're
wondering,
wondering,
all
all
these
these
men,
men,
one
one
lady.
lady.
But
But
today
today
we're
we're
mainly
mainly
going
gonna
to be
be
talking
talking
about
about
careers,
careers,
and
and
I
I guess
guess men
men
dominate
dominate
best
best
in
careers.
careers. But
But
today,
today,
generally,
generally,
what we're
what
going
we're
to
going
be
to be
talking
talking
about
about
is
is
navigating
navigating
life
life
in regards
much
to our careers, right?
right.
So,
So
this
this
particular
particular
point in
point in
time,
time,
before we
before we
continue, I'm
continue,
going
I'm
to
gonna
ask
ask
each
each
of
of
our
our
panelists to
panelists to
introduce
introduce
themselves
themselves
and
and
just
just
tell
tell us
us what
what
do you do.
My name
That
is
is Lucas.
Lucas. I'm
I'm
actually
actually
local
local
from
from
Poland,
Poland,
although
although
most of
most of
my
my
adult life
life
I
was
lived
lived
abroad.
abroad.
So I
So I
lived
lived
in
in Asia
Asia for about
about
8
8
years.
years.
I also
Also
lived in
in
UK
UK
for a couple of
8
years.
years.
I briefly
Briefly
also lived in the States.
States.
I
I
work
work
as,
as
well,
well,
you
you
may
may
say
say
a
a
product
product
designer
designer,
or product
product
architect.
architect.
So
So
we
we
build
build
financial
financial
products
products
on blockchain.
blockchain.
But I've
But I've
been
been
working in
working in
software
software
for the
for the
past
past
15
15
years.
years.
And
And
this is
this is
kind of where most of
most of
my
my
experience, professional
professional
experience
experience
come
came
from.
from.
But
But
I've
I've
done a
done a
lot
lot
of
of
different
different
things,
things
so happy to talk
about
about that as
as
well.
well.
Hello everyone. My name is Chisani Mwe, but you can call me Chat. That's the easier way for most people. I'm originally from Zimbabwe.
So many that's it. I lived in Sweden. I also lived in Namibia for a few months where I was studying. Then,
Yeah,
yeah,
in
it's
Zim and
and
Poland as
Poland.
well. So
So,
generally
generally,
that's
that's
me.
me.
Okay. Hi,
Hi,
my
my
name
name
is
is
Innocent.
Innocent.
I'm originally from Nigeria.
Here,
I come from Nigeria, also originally. I come from Nigeria.
Nigeria,
I'm a
a
graduate
graduate
of
of
biochemistry,
biochemistry.
but
But
after
after
school,
school,
I
I
found
found
myself
myself
in
in
supply
supply
chain.
chain.
So
So
I've
I've
been
been
doing
doing
supply
supply
chain
chain
for
for
the
the
last
last
16
16
years.
years.
I've
I've
been
been
in
in
four
four
different
different
multinationals,
multinationals,
working
working
different
different
supply
supply
chain
chain,
roles, planning,
planning,
logistics,
logistics,
the
the
whole
whole
lot.
of
Yeah,
yeah. And
it's
it's fun,
fun. It's
it's
interesting,
interesting,
and
and
I
I
hope
hope
I
I
can
can
fed
connect
one or
with
two people with some
some
supply
supply chain
chain disease
with
here today.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that is going to be our panel of people, right? And today we're going to get the opportunity to ask them everything and anything that is on your heart, on your head, on your mind, on your toes. I don't know where it is. But the general idea is we're going to get a chance to get into their minds and just try to figure out how do we move from here. For some of us, we are starting out our careers and we're like, okay, I have 5 years and you're still feeling a bit lost. And somebody is what, 55 and is deciding maybe it's time to be a massage therapist, you know? The general idea is today we're going to be just talking about navigating our careers and how we can move from there. So I'm going to start with Luke. My question to you, my first question to you is going to be, what did you want to be when you were a child? What did you want to be when you were a child?
I
So
absolutely
they
have
had
no
no
idea.
idea. And to be honest, I was not even really thinking about it.
So,
So, you know,
that
that
goes
goes
in
in
contrast
contrast
to
to
my
my
sister,
sister,
for
for
instance,
instance,
right?
right?
She
She
always
always
knew
knew
she
she
wanted to
was
be a
a
doctor,
doctor,
and
and
she
she
became
became
a
a
doctor.
doctor.
All
All
I
I
knew
knew
when I
when I
was
was
finishing
finishing
high
high
school
school
is
is
that
that
I
I
didn't
didn't
want to
want to
live with
live with
my
my
parents.
parents.
And,
And,
you know, I
I
did
did
everything
everything
to
to
make
make
that
that
reality.
reality.
So,
So,
but
but
you know,
you know,
I
I
did
did
quite
quite
all
all
right
right.
in life. So
So
even
even,
yeah,
yeah,
I've
I've
seen
seen
people
people
that
that
know
know
exactly
exactly
what
what
they
they
want
want
from
from
their
their
early
early
age,
age,
but I
but
would
I would
say
say
those
those
are
are
outliers. Most
most
people,
people,
when
when
you
you
go
go
to
to
school,
school,
university, whatever,
like most people.
already know.
And the fact that majority of people that I know don't work professionally with the profession that they've been trained for, I think that speaks volumes. Like in our company, we do hardware software. I mean, like
hardcore.
we just asked ourselves a question recently. Only 3 out of 9 engineers being trained as software engineers.
We have nuclear scientists and mathematicians. Or guys even without a college degree.
And Pat, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I just wanted a job that would give me a lot of money, honestly. I didn't think about it that much, but I was just looking for something that was going to give me purpose. Because I think I'm a trained individual, so I just wanted to have something that is going to give me value as an individual. So nothing specific.
Okay. Innocent, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I wanted to be a medical doctor, surgeon, and that's why I started off with biochemistry. But after 4 years of hustling biochemistry, I changed my mind. Yeah, it looked too tough already, so I pivoted. But then the interesting thing about where I come from, most people don't work what they are trained to do. Sometimes you come out of school and you're thinking, I'm looking for the first opportunity that comes. So I found a graduate training opportunity and stumbled into supply chain. That's how I like to describe it. But I wanted to be a medical doctor.
Welcome, Pastor. I'm so sorry to put you on the spot just since you've arrived, but please introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm
Customer Steven as skill
those of you who are speaking, and I represent Port Coalition, the college. I do also have a family, two daughters living in Lisa, who see them over the course of the weekend. I teach, I preach, I counsel, and I try to help.
Okay, so thank you so much, Pastor. And just a quick question on what you wanted to be when you were growing up. When you were a little child, what were you aspiring to be?
To be honest,
I don't remember serious thoughts. I remember typical child activities, like trying to be a firefighter on an island. But I think around 15 years of age, I began to understand that I like it. And that naturally became part of my name. So I followed that path. But I never actually thought that I would end up like as a scholar.
Thank you so much. So generally when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about me in particular. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a farmer, you know? And I really wanted to be a farmer because I liked insects. I don't know what the correlation was, but, you know, that was the general idea of, like, you know, where the dream came from. But growing up, a lot of things changed, especially the idea behind the fact that now I was considering the fact that I'm Adventist, and I had to ask myself, what happens if, you know, insects go on the crops on a Saturday? What am I going to do, right? So, I'm innocent. How has your faith or being an Adventist or your religious life impacted your career life?
It's inseparable. You know, if you know my story, you know that, well, the way I like to describe it, my career was designed by God Himself. Okay? I didn't have a hand in it. If you ask me 10 years ago where I'll be today, I would have no idea, because where I was and where I am now, it's like night and day. It's all been a process of following the will of God, listening to the voice of God. The Bible verse that says, "You will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way you walk in it." That's practically my career. And the Sabbath has been very critical because every time I needed to make a decision. Right from when I was in university, one thing I found out for me personally, whenever I do anything on Sabbath, it's screwed up. It's not useful for me. Okay, in Nigeria, it's difficult to go through the school system without going to school on Sabbath. So there's some exams you have to take, and I thought I had to. And I took those exams, and every time I take that exam, I never used the results for anything. From that point in time, I learned that anything that has to do with Sabbath, if I put my hand on it, it will be a mess. So every time I got a job offer that says do something on Sabbath to sign a letter, I knew that's not the path for me. So generally, my faith and my career have been tied together. And when I look back, I see that God was giving me two different roles at different times, opening the opportunity in very divine ways, lead me to where I am.
Say that I had like a consistent ups and downs in my career, but there are definitely moments that are extremely challenging. So occasionally I actually work with my kid, and she has a business where she builds exhibition booths. It's very street shows over in New York. And we have this situation where there are many situations actually where people to go and help this big project, big plan, and when the things don't go your way and you're left helpless. I know it sounds cliche, but we actually learned to trade, and I mean we wouldn't have time, but I can tell you about actual miracles, and I'm not even joking. The actual miracles that the things that were frankly impossible. And even people would say, oh, this is impossible. This is not going to happen. And we pray. And we even mentioned that to people. Said, pray. And this things happen. So
Question. It, it, it did happen just like this. I remember studying still at the university, and uh, coming most of the stages of my spiritual life. There was quite a long time in my life that I was very part of Christianity, and you could say that I was actually on the other side in a way. But God somehow, by step, giving me impulses from various positions until I became a Christian again. And then he led me into thinking that there is more to me. So it took time, but I remember when I graduated, I actually wanted to uh, go to business. But God didn't allow. He had his own ideas. So, but whatever I tried to do, he pushed me somewhere else. And I had this idea in my mind that that's because he had a plan. So I wasn't necessarily convinced at the time, but somehow I knew that God had a plan and things were coming. So I was waiting. And he like it came, he was like me, was me, like me. He sent me up in my church, pray, they fasted, they so, but after this, I had this idea that I should deliver, and that probably God had a plan me when I got to my experience my education. I was he felt very
way more because the respect is there and the trust is there.
Thank you so much, Luke. And still just talking about calling and purpose. It's always different when it's coming from a pastor. So I wanted to know from Pastor, if there's anything that we've missed out, if there's a Bible verse, that I maybe have flipped through and, missed on how to navigate my way through my calling and my purpose, that may come to mind.
I wouldn't actually refer to a particular Bible verse. I would recommend probably taking your time and putting your heart into something that I would say that if you really want to do the will of God in your life, you will. But the problem is that you might not always know how to fulfill that will. So it'll be a challenge. At times, things will come clear. They will come through. You will know what to do. At other times, things will not get through, and you will have to use other measures, look for answers, be patient. And there are ways that you could navigate your life in order for you to find your calling. I always believe that God will never stop you from doing things you really want to do. If you really enjoy doing something, if you really want to have a career in something, I think He will let you have it. The point is that if He has a plan for you to do other things, there will come a time that He will get through and say, but maybe you should consider doing something else. And I believe that if you really want to follow God, you will find a way to do it, whether you are having a secular career or you're doing something from God. And I would agree with what you said, that you can actually thrive wherever you are because you're a Christian. But I wouldn't impose things on people because sometimes you need to make a mistake or two in your life, also in your career, in order for you to learn and then draw conclusions that will be very useful when you start doing the right thing in your life. So sometimes God allows for mistakes. He allows for time to pass by. He allows for you to be undecided and unable to know what to do. But there's always a purpose to it. That's what I find. And I think that if you really want to do the will of God, you will. You just need to wait. And if you cannot wait anymore, look around. Uh, look, you can use other criteria. You have some good friends, godly people. You can talk with them. You have parents. You have the Bible. You have things from your past that you can refer to. So you can make a decision whether your calling is straight with God or it's somewhere else, and then just go for it and see what God does once you've made that decision.
Thank you so much. Now, Pat, I figured out that I want to be in finance, like you, right? And I'm seeing in this particular case, most people have figured out that, okay, my place is to be a doctor. But now they've gotten into the position. But if you work in some of these companies, and maybe I might mention the company that you work at, maybe you work at PNG or you work at ING, and you're there, and they're telling you that for you to make it to the top, for you to be a top boy, you're going to have to work hard. So on 7th, my boss is calling me at 8 a.m. to find me to, get the work done. And my question is being ambitious wrong? Or will God forgive me for working hard? Because this is my calling. This is what God wants. Well, so is it wrong for me then to work? Because this is what God is telling me to do. It's then wrong for me to put in the work, because, God is the place you
Um, in my life, I have always applied this verse in Proverbs. I forgot about. I think it's Proverbs 5 that says, um, "Trust in the Lord and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, it, it says, commit your ways to Him, and He will make your path straight." So if you commit um, your life, each and every move, each and every step that you take in your life, God will be able to guide you. It's quite difficult. Actually, working hard and being ambitious is not a problem. It's actually good. It motivates you, it makes you stand out, it makes you want to achieve more and, fulfill your purpose. At the same time, if you commit your ways, God will be able to guide you. And in that spirit and in that same sphere, you'll be able to navigate through these difficult um, situations. One of my jobs before I actually came to Poland, I was working at a call center, and one of the requirements, I was a supervisor there, and it required me to work on a Sabbath because the call center doesn't close. It has to be there in functional 24 hours working for a bank. And I was supposed to actually manage um, that. And you'll find that some of these conversations, I think we tend to hear without even trying that much. Once you are able to communicate and have that conversation with your bosses or with the people who are in charge and explain about your faith and what you believe in, if you commit your way first to God, you'll find that the conversation will be much easier. I went to my boss and I actually explained and told her the time that um, my faith, I would love to go to church and working on a Sabbath for me is a no-go area. After having that conversation with her, I don't know how God did it. I don't know what happened. She has always been that tough person and everyone feared her. After that, everything was done properly and they were able to find someone who was able to come through and everything went out well. I never missed church during that time.
Thank you so much. I just realized while talking about calling and purpose, I forgot about something. So this is my story. So what happened is growing up, and I know all of you are going to be like, yeah, you're lying. No, I'm not lying. Growing up, I was a good swimmer, right? I was so good. I was so good that I made it into some team swimming, right? So now I want you to understand that when I'm looking at God, I'm like, thank you, God. This is the gift. This is the talent that you've given me. I am a swimmer. I am going to be a swimmer. And then it came time to session. It came time to practice. It came time for competitions and the honor Sabbath. And my mother was like, no, we're not doing that, right? Now, my question then is, I looked at God and I'm like, God, something's not adding up. Something is not adding up yet. This is the gift that you've given me, and yet it's happening every Sabbath. Make it make sense. Make this. So my question then is, why does God then give you certain gifts if you then can't use them? And this is a question for any panelist.
But who said you cannot use your swimming gift? That's not the fact. You can use it in other ways. You just cannot become an Olympic medalist, for example. Okay? So, and that skill God will use if you submit to Him. If He's not already used it or using it, He will use it at some point. Yeah? And what I believe is whatever skills I develop at work or in the secular world, my responsibility to God is to bring that into mission, into His work in church. So if you see me, for example, bringing in administrative skills, leadership skills, people skills into the things I do in church, that's because my knowledge is that God had given me those skills, even though I use them to eat, to serve Him and to move His mission forward. Okay, so those skills you cannot, going back to some of the conversations we had earlier, as an Adventist, fortunately, I will not use unfortunately, there are certain industries we cannot go into. Okay? So, as an Adventist, right from when you're about to pick your course of study, mentally draw the line from where you are starting to where you are going. If you are going into theater arts, you already know where you are going to. Nollywood, Hollywood, Bollywood, whichever one. If you're going into sports, you want to be Ronaldo, you want to be Messi, you already know that your Sabbats are gone, for example. So you may not pursue those things as a full career, but of course, those things will be relevant at different points of your mission work for God. Talking about working hard, a wise man once said, work hard, you are not God's only son. So working hard is not a crime. The Bible says, you see a man who is diligent in his work. What does diligence mean? So you're hardworking, you're doing what you should do over and above expectation. That man will stand before kings and not before mean men.
Sometimes. In life, God would give you a talent that will make you shine in an area, and this will be very promising to you as your future, potential future career. You might think that this is where you're going to go. However, you see, when God gives talents like this, sometimes there's something a bit different in mind. Now, what is it? See, sometimes you will not be saved unless you're faced with a difficult decision that you need to make in your life. And that decision comes from the fact that you have something uh, that you believe was your future. But at a certain point, you realize that you would have to make a decision, either be with the Lord or be with this area. And sometimes, I always think it's my personal opinion that a lot of lives have been saved because of such difficult decisions. So people had to make a difficult decision to sacrifice something that was very precious to them. And from then on, as you said, God could actually bless. Use it as a ministry in some other areas. Some people were even quite known when they had to say, sorry, it's not for me. I need to back up. Okay. Why? Because it's also a testimony, you see. So when you step down from a career like this, you give yourself a boost towards God, and God will use that boost for good purposes. And number two, you give a good testimony to your brothers and sisters that there are things that are more important in life than a good, promising career. Plus, I think it's also a nice testimony to some people because many people might say, well, are you stupid? You are ruining your life, right? But there will always be somebody who will say, I admire you because you follow your lead and you don't compromise. Uh, just you say these things. When I was leaving my job, I had an experience like this with a guy who was a teacher, and he was from India. He was not even a Christian. But as I was about to leave my job quite soon, he once came to my office. He sat down with me, and I was reading the Bible. And he asked a question: "Is this the Bible that you're reading?" I said, "Yes." And then he said, "You see, your testimony, your decision to leave your job and go work for the Lord is something that impresses me." And I was so surprised because, he said a lot of nice things to me I would never have thought true. Uh, but that's how he saw things. So you see, God can use these situations for his glory. And you might be surprised because you wouldn't think about yourself as someone special. But you see, God will use these things and he can make someone else look up to it, even though they're not a believer.
Um, Thank you so much, Uncle Innocent and Pastor. But I want us to take a moment, just a moment to reflect, right? If you read Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, it says, being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. Right? I want us to take a moment personally as we go through these conversations to actually think of what are you unsure about? What are you struggling with? What are you thinking about that's not making sense, right? And before we enter into the next session, my question then is, does anyone have a question in that regard? Having I talked about calling, about purpose, I may not have thought about something, and I see a little chatter in this corner. So, yes, Lynn, do you have a question?
Yes, yes. Very important question. So first of all, you need to find God. You don't expect to hear from God if you are not walking with God. Yeah. So our primary assignment as human beings is to find God, and there are different ways we come to God. But ultimately, when you find God, you will build a relationship with Him. In that relationship with God, He will design how He communicates with you personally. Personally, I have my style, I have my way, and I know a lot of people have the ways that God works with them. Sometimes you hear a almost clear, visible voice in your head saying, no way. You know, when I was younger, I was like, okay, what career should I do? I said, in Nigeria, you need to do three things to survive. You either be in the military, or you are a politician, or you are a lawyer. These are the three people that, in my mind then had influence and control things. And I said, okay, I want to do either one of these three to survive. And I heard a voice in my head saying, these are vain desires. Okay. And at that point, I had to drop that plan and idea. So, walking with God over time, you will find the way He walks with you. Sometimes it's people, sometimes my wife. I remember once I changed my career, and it was a chat. I told myself, oh, this man, I could talk to him. He could, do something. And she said, go and meet this guy. And the next day in the office, that voice comes back to you while you're working to say, get up, go and look for this guy. And at that point in time, you go connect with the guy, and my career changes in weeks just because I made that single move. And it was not because I was smart or I knew how to speak good English. It was the right time, and God put that in my spirit by listening to somebody to say, this is what you should do next. But in all things, ensure that you follow the word and the will of God. Whenever a decision stands against the word and will of God, your answer is clear. I find many people, and sometimes it surprises me. You find something that's clearly against the will of God, but because of your heart's desire, you are making prayer requests to God. What do you want Him to do? Change His will just because of you? Or what? So when the word of God is clear, follow the word of God. It might not be simple, it might be painful, but ultimately God will see you.
Thank you so much, Vincent. And just talking about um, all of this made me think that, we've been talking about God a lot. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying talking about God is bad, but I think the thing people then struggle with is maybe the real life situations, the real life questions when it comes down to it. I was listening to Pat talking, and he was like, my wife was pregnant, and I had to say, to make money. And Pat, in that line, I was then wondering, you know, nowadays we're so worried about money because money, yes, money makes the world go round. At the end of the day, I need to eat tomorrow. I need to eat tomorrow. And hey, don't get me wrong, nothing is past the Zimbabwe. I'm living the best life. You look at the past and you're like, I need to feed my family. Yeah? And then, it goes to be a pastor. And you be the Saturday, you're like, but the big question for you, Pat, is then Money over purpose. What's more important?
Money is important, guys. Let's not lie to each other. Who doesn't have money here? Money is important. I think if you put money at the center of your life, you have a problem. Because that will drive each and every decision that you make, and you tend to overlook um, every standard, every value, or every principle that you have set for yourself, and also that aligns with God. Um, During the early part of my career as well, I remember I got an offer of of this position that was quite good. Um, the money was good, but one of there's something that was off about it because it did not align with what I valued as an individual or my purpose. Because I felt like this kind of role will sort of limit me, will make me shrink and will not align to God's will at the end of the day. So I ended up not taking that particular role because I knew, just like Innocent was saying, there's certain careers where you know where the end result is before you actually um, engage in. So I actually realized that, okay, this will be the end result. At the end of the day, it's going to compromise who I am, it's going to compromise my value, and it's going to compromise me as a child of God. So it is important, but if you put money at the center of everything, you'll have it all.
Thank you so much. And think, I don't know if you've heard the song. I actually don't think you heard the song. I don't know how I heard the song. That says I'd rather be sitting in a Bentley, sipping and drinking the Bahamas. You know, I'd rather be walking into Gucci and telling them, just give me everything. And the question then is, if you were offered the opportunity for a lifetime, six-digit salary, but it didn't align with your Christian principalities, would you take it?
So
And before you answer, be honest.
I'm always honest. And actually, with the song that you singing, actually, when I lived in China, it was very famous. And it was like they have this talk show, right? And it's like a dating talk show. And it became extremely viral because there was this lady. She came up, and I mean, various things happened. But then she said something profound. That's something that really defined the way she was thinking. She said, "I'd rather be crying in BMW than laugh on the bicycle." And people were very outraged, say, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, right. You get it, right? And but then the question, the fundamental question is, why would you need money? It's an honest question. Why would you need money? Because money. Go ahead, please tell me.
Why would I need money?
Why would you need money?
I need,
But you're not gonna eat the money.
have you ever compared buying KFC and sitting in a five-star hotel and eating chicken?
I've, I had both. Okay, and of course it doesn't. But the thing is, when people optimize for money because they think they're gonna be happy, they're very optimistic, and having money seems fun for people that don't have money. I'll give you an example. So, my cousin's husband, okay, a very successful businessman, okay, running his own business. He's buying cars because he likes cars, okay. He has a problem because he's driving ain't big enough for the number of cars he wants to have, right? So, a very successful guy, okay. And once we were sitting at his house, and he said, "Lucas, um, we need to do something together because I think I've lost purpose and what I do." Because he said, "I thought that if I had wife and kids and a beautiful house and successful business and cars, and I'll be happy. And I'm not. And he was miserable. Miserable. He had all the money. Like, if you said, oh, I need money to eat, right? No, he had way more money than that. Okay? This is like, he's not super rich, but he's well off, right? But he's miserable. So the question is, what do you optimize your life for? I mean, if we don't talk religion, then what's left, right? Comfort. You think you optimize for comfort, luxury. But why would you do that and be miserable? Like this Chinese girl, how stupid, how short-sighted this thinking is. I'd rather be crying in BMW than laughing on the bicycle. Because you see, and this is from my own life, okay? I can't complain about it, okay? And but I remember days where I was riding a scooter, like electric moped with my wife at the back. And we had money, like I use scooter because we always were under consuming, right? And I thought scooter is just more convenient where we live, okay? And I remember we were riding up the scooter, and then there was this massive downpour, big rain, and we were soaked completely wet on that scooter. And, and I joked to my wife, okay, I say, oh, how good is that we have a car? Because if we didn't have a car, we would be soaking wet now. And it became a running joke in our family, right? Now, I mean, we have a car. We drive a car, and every time there's downpour, I say, oh, it's too bad we ride with all that. So I think, kind of going back, if you optimize for money in your life, you may get it, but it may not be what you think it will be. So if given a chance to compromise my beliefs just for money, I think it's a fool's choice to go for money. Because money, like I had this friend who always used to say, I never understood that until much later in life. He said, money is an acquired thing, right? You acquire money once. If you don't have money, you have money afterwards. It's not life defining thing. Okay? I mean, and if it is, I would really question your life choices. Because like going back to what the Bible says, look first for the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and all those things will be added to you. Eating, drinking, clothing, those are byproducts of happy life.
Thank you so much. But Pastor, my question then is, somebody who's then looking at you guys sitting here, and I ask you what do you do, and you're telling me, oh, I've been 10 years, 15 years in the supply chain. And it's like, okay, you have money, you can say that now, man. I have money. It's not what you're thinking about. And then there's me who's gonna land on this take between us in 2 days past your age, It's so much easier than to tell somebody focus on your purpose, because I have money. Like I can tell you to focus on your purpose because now I have money. And my question then is, what would you then say somebody is looking at you or who's thinking that man?
Um, uh, the answer would be complex. I don't think I could give just one particular piece of advice. I would say that you need to take a few things into consideration. Number one, um, uh, if you think about money, you look at your salary, your wages, right? What you get every month, and you say, well, I have my debts, I have my liabilities, my commitments, and I have to deal with them. And I still have, say, 50 more months or 60 more months to deal with them. So this is nerve wracking. When you're tempted to look elsewhere for money,
one of the first things that comes to your mind is your dream. Uh, what I would do if I had the money? I could deal with this and that and this and that. So it's like a purpose. Have a purpose. Uh, but as you said, Luke, you see, it doesn't go beyond a certain point because this point is something you wouldn't be able to picture because you see, the way we treat money is, I would say, illogical. Once you have a temptation to go offline and do something else, and it will give you money, but there's a price to pay. It is a temptation. You will be struggling, right? So you should uh, you should think about the consequences and not area. However, one of the things that I always say is that money doesn't work in numbers. What I mean by that is that we look at money in a logical way. Money doesn't work in a logical way in our life. Just like our attitudes towards the law of God should be logical and simple, but I did not. If you take 10 commandments, come on, how much brain do you need to think what you should do and what you shouldn't? How come it never work? Right? Money has the same lure. So obviously, it'll be always difficult to say no to money and go for purpose because you will see the immediate uh, benefit of having that thing in your hand, right? But I would always say the best thing is to give yourself some time. Take your time, talk with God, and ask about your future in 5 years' time. What will happen to you not today, not in 5 months, when you have dealt presumably with all your debts and all your liabilities, but ask about yourself in 5 years' time. And this should be, if God reveals this to you, this should be, I think, a break.
Thank you so much, Pastor. But okay, listen, what other questions can I ask myself in that regard? The pastor just mentioned that I should ask myself that if in 5 months I did to have the money, then what? My question is, what other questions can I ask myself, or what other evaluation questions can I ask myself to determine whether or not I'm moving in the right direction?
So let me try to combine with the previous question as well. Because yes, you might look at some of us and say 15, 20 years later, it's easy for you to sit and speak. Well, 15, 20 years ago, I was probably where you are, even worse, because you are abroad, by the way. Yeah? And when I was at your stage, I wasn't abroad. I was in Nigeria, and then I didn't know what tomorrow held. You know, you woke up every day going to the streets not knowing what comes next. When I finished school, I had to wait for one full year before I got a job, and in that period, I was going out every day, sending out. Back then, you didn't have internet on your phone the way you have it today. So you have to go to what the cyber cafes. Yeah, you buy 1 hour and then you sit down and then you apply to all of the companies that you know and desire and wait to hear from them. So um, we also did some of those things. And the important thing to note is that this is not a sprint; it's a marathon. Yeah, it's not a sprint; it's a marathon. And sometimes 10 years from now, you will look back and whatever you think is so difficult and painful now, you will describe in 5 seconds. You just, I remember back then when I was, but now, 5 seconds is gone. But now it's your everyday. It's really hard, I know. And it's difficult, I know. But then, I hope that was not fancy. Trust the process. Yeah, it's a hard process, but trust the process. The journey is actually more important than the destination. God is doing something with you, and it's what you allow Him to do with you, through you, in that period that really matters. Because what you become is what will matter 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, not the amount that is in your bank account. The money will ultimately come if you stay the course, but we've seen a lot of people destroy themselves by going too fast. Yeah, if you go too fast, you could actually destroy yourself. We had colleagues, we had friends that we started together with, and today, we know where some of these people are. So if you go too fast, do the wrong things, hurt yourself, hurt your health. This is something that people don't talk enough about. While you are working hard, don't destroy your health. I had colleagues whom, say, 7, 8 years ago, these were young people in their 30s, their health was already gone because they were working hard. You were in the office till 9 p.m., you were working weekends, you were working hard, looking for that promotion, looking for that next level, and then your health starts to fail, a young person. And then when you're in your 40s, 50s, when you should be enjoying your life, enjoying your children, you are using the money you now have to sustain your health, more or less. Okay, so you need to always, because something has to give. So you need to determine what price you want to pay for the goals and targets that you set for yourself. Ultimately, if you follow God's way, it's slower, it's more painful, but anything that is good actually takes time to build, including your career. A good career takes time to build, to mature, to ripen, and to enjoy. Don't go too fast. You will hurt yourself.
Thank you so much. Usually during this time in the panel, I start thinking to myself, hey, where's the break? I'm not going to give you a break. No, don't get me wrong. But what I will do for you is we're going to sing a song. We're going to sing a song, right? And this is a song about joy. And I'm going to sing this song because my next conversation is about being burnt out. So I need you to be thinking about this. We're about to get into what I'm going to say just talked about. Somebody who's been working, who's 30 and who's 50, that's what we're about to talk about. But before we burn out the people we're about to tell not to burn themselves out, let's sing a song. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my down in my heart. The joy, 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 joy down in my heart to say, and I'm so happy, so very happy. I found the love of Jesus in my HEA heart, and I'm so happy, so very happy. I found the love of Jesus in my heart. I've got the don't know what you call it, but the devil doesn't like it down in my heart. Down in my heart, down in my heart. I've got the don't know what you call it, but the devil doesn't like it down in my heart. Down in my heart to say, and I'm so happy, so very happy. I found the love of Jesus in my HEAs, and I'm so happy, so very happy. I found the love of Jesus in my heart. Thank you so much. I just wanted to wake you up, so I tell you not to give up at times. Right out here, we're making enough money, we're making enough money. Stuff. But thank you so much, Awareness. You started talking about exactly what I want to get into next. Talking about being burnt out. Some of us have been working call center jobs for 3 years and it's like, hey, let's retire. Oh, it's time. Time, right? And you're barely making 3 figures. Once you finish paying the rent, paying your data bill, you get a couple of calls from Zimbabwe and they remind you that, hey, stuff on you. And my question is about people who are burnt out. Now I'm looking at your faces and I feel like all of you have an answer to this question. A question on getting burnt out. So I'm just gonna ask the question. Off the top of your head, what would you say to somebody who's like, hey, it's been too long, it's been tough, I feel like giving up. Like I've been chasing this purpose, but I feel like giving up. So any of you, Pastor, Pat, I'm gonna say anybody.
Actually, listen to the answer to this question. Yeah, actually, that's what I also wanted to just find out because um, I'm also part of the people who actually burned out because, uh, for example, I work a 9 to 5 job, and after that, now sometimes what I do is I do so. After that, I have a wife who's waiting for me at home. After that, I have the son that I'm supposed to play with.
I like the priorities. Why first then family?
So I'm I'm also trying to um, find a balance between that, but at the same time, just like Innocent saying about to say, you just have something else. You just have to find a balance and um, find out like what is really valuable to you. Find time and try to make the best moments out of it. That's what I've learned. And sometimes what I do is, for some time, I have to let go of some things for me to be able to spend time with them. At the same time, it goes back to the question that you're saying, money. We need the money, especially uh, for us to survive. But I guess what is valuable to you and something else, and family comes first.
I hear you, but let me give you an example. When I initially came to Poland, I had school from 9 to 7 p.m. But I also needed to financially sustain myself. So in that 9 to 7 p.m., I also had a job that was 3 to, I think it was 3 to 11. It could have been 3 to 2, but somewhere there, somewhere in between, And they're telling me to give up something. What am I giving up here? School or work or life? No, I didn't have a life. Don't necessarily say I didn't have one. But I hear you. Give up something. But there's nothing to give.
I think there's a difference between being burned out and being simply tired. And when you're tired, it's a function of the effort. You need to take rest. I think Sabbath is a very good cadence to life where you actually, like God put it in purpose. People don't know how to rest these days. So being tired is one thing, but being burned out is something deeper. When imagine, because I really want us to define what it means to be burnt out. Because if you're young, you like like question, are you actually burned out or are you simply tired? Because think about, and I think this would be more a question to you, Pastor, because if you dedicate your life to something very particular, okay, and that's what you do, like you close off any different avenue of your life. That's what you do. That defines you. You are, I don't know, pastor. Okay, pastor is probably the best example because that it really defines you on so many levels. And then, what if you tired of that line of business? You know, like you just don't want to do it anymore for some reason. To me, that's being burned out. It's not simply tired. You might be full of energy, yet burned out at the same time.
Let me refer to this because it's a very relevant issue. I would say I think both being tired and being burned out. You can actually be burnt out in almost everything. Some people might think that if you do the work of God, if you do missionary work, you will be okay. Don't think this way. You can get burned out with absolutely everything, even with missionary work, even with pastoral work, actually, sometimes, especially with pastoral work, because there are things in this ministry that you might not particularly like, but it comes with the whole the whole package. So it's something that you need to somehow negotiate. There are only two options out. You can either quit, go somewhere else, or you can look for ways to recover. If you're burned out, it's a serious thing because it might be that you will not be able to actually continue your work or your business. Because it's not only about being tired, but you have no more joy in what you're doing. There's no joy, there's no future. You cannot see anything that could bring you back this joy. Plus, you have no more ideas because you have run out of any ideas and you're simply done. And I would say sometimes this would be in the way that God actually gives signs. Sometimes God will use this to tell you, move on, move on. But of course, again, it takes time to talk with God and to somehow try to see to what extent your feelings are actually um, uh, definitive. Because sometimes it's just feelings, right? You need some common sense. You need to ask your wife, who will sometimes have twice as much common sense as you. Right, it happens. And you need someone who will just tell you. Now, as for being tired, um, actually, it's a very different convention, the difference. I have come to a point in my life where I actually understand will never be even with your tasks in life. I have actually come to this. I thought as long as you work really hard, you are committed, you have a plan, you know what to do, you have a schedule, you will somehow come out of all the I don't think this way. I believe that there will always be something better. There's always something you haven't done. And actually, it's a question of not only compromising, but seeing where you are ready to lose something in order to gain something else. Because of so many commitments in mind that you will have one job, another job, part-time job, your family, your wife, your kids, and it's impossible to do everything. But you need to decide. So just to end up, I think I have uh, found myself in situations where I actually consciously decided not to do certain things that I was supposed to do. Thank you. Um, or someone else because I just thought I just couldn't pull it off. It was too much. I was at the rusty. I just couldn't take it. And I knew it was bad. I knew I would have issues, but I said my life is more my so sometimes thank you so much, Pastor Luke. Before Congressman continues and responds to this, so I don't know if you guys can hear. A lot of you customers say this before, you are not entered in the time. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. But I'm going to say, we're not going into this. Yes. It's not begin to speak in the more kind of general sense. And Jefferson, and you go that I want easy. You have 6 hours to sleep, that's all that it is. You're not going to mention what to mention those weeks. There's no just that. I know this for where you hustle, my friends. So if you are hustling, the right stage of the life, or the right business, the right business, you are just growing yourself as you go across the school. I was walking, it's called walk study. So I had so I was looking at each people at some point. Yeah, I was seeing all these events and classes, being going to school at the same time. That's a stage in your life. So long as you're able to balance your diet, your goals, should come out well. This is key. We are 7 day Adventists, and the topic of temperance is very relevant. You will need it every time. Even good stuff can become bad if you do them regularly.
another pastor was talking about there's a certain training I do. It's called 80-20 principle. It will help you because ultimately you need to decide at every point in time how much of yourself you commit to a certain plan. Some talents you give 20% of yourself, and that is fine. Some talents you give 80%, and that is fine. Some life defining situations, you give 100% of yourself in that situation because that is what it demands. What makes people burn out most of the time is because someone are wired to such a way that everything you thought you do 100%, you will not survive. You don't have that much money. So you need to decide and start from a place of principle, prioritize what is most important to you. Don't family, work, health, whatever it is, make your priorities straight. If money is your top priority, good luck to you. You will mess up in the end. But then if you have your priorities separate, you manage your energy. You know what to commit what point in time. And then you go to the pages of right. You never it's easy, you never stop. You used to think once, two, one, two, three, then I can see that. It's not slowing down. And then we just see future targets as well. You want promotion, you want more responsibilities. I look at my bosses. So, for example, some senior director was telling us the certain power. It's a training at the office. When they asked those and popular presidents, vice presidents, those leaders, how they rate their level of happiness, and these are the level that I want to hear. They have official private jets taking them to countries to do assignments in hotels. And we guys are on trains, sectors so beauty. Those guys are practically usable. They almost do not like you're always on. You know, the whole business is on your shoulder. You are carrying a vision of a country, the global business, and you think that go and chill or because they don't know what that is. So it gets more difficult. And I think the final point I want to make is what's your focus? What are you chasing? Social media cannot help you to us. You go to social media and they pressure you, my friends. You will see someone that you were in school with 5 years ago and they're here. They may not, they are easy to manage in life. They are in a big in some fancy place, and then you start to say, God, when will my income? You don't know what that guy is actually facing where it is. So, social media doesn't tell Instagram, whatever, you don't really reach yourself, and you come back and pressure your life. Set your principles right, have the right focus, 80-20, spread your priorities, and you should be fine that you always be that. Thank you so much. You said so many things now as the very just go anymore. But just talking about the whole burnt out idea and putting the right energy in the right direction. My head came around to the fact that I, I want to be a millionaire before I'm dead. Why? Why? Because with what I want to do, I'm trying to deliver. You know, pretty good. People was like, no, but that answer that time. You know, God is that question for me would be maybe you're looking at somebody who's 24 who's now telling you that I'm doing right? Right? And some of my saying of course here, where I'm talking who's 24 and they're the babies. So one of my friends, and the hard is came to manage. So 20 days here, this they are not managed. Myself, that moment of okay, so now. And then yes, yeah. Talking about being burnt out, social media, and everything like that. I know for most of you who found your niche, but you're way through navigated. The question that I asked initially: what questions should I ask myself for me to figure out whether or not I'm making the right decision? So, for example, me looking at my life and saying, it's his life, not mine, you know?
Trying to have $1 million, not mine. What question can I ask myself to evaluate whether or not I'm burnt out, whether or not I'm getting pressure from social media, whether or not, what questions can I ask myself? I'm not headed towards the past because you mentioned something in the beginning about being a therapist. You guys ask us a lot of questions to lead us to, some of these choices. What can I ask myself? Um, uh, there are those questions you can ask yourself. One of the things that you should definitely think about is if you are actually happy with your life and if you feel in a way fulfilled with what you do. Because I would say God never minds us achieving things in life and giving us some joy. So, of course, there will be jobs in your life that will give you a miserable face. It's part of life. But if you look for a general direction, you should think about something that will give you at least a feeling at the end. I have lived a valuable life. At least I can see something that I've done. Okay? So this thing, as for therapy, well, people do these things in different ways. Sometimes it's actually good to read good book. There are lots of very good books where you can find really reasonable advice for your life. They're not always free books. Some of them are really good books that will give you ways of thinking, how to prioritize things, how to change your thinking about yourself and your life, and how to actually to make changes in your life. But I always say that I have a personal therapist myself, and it's actually God. Because I sometimes take problems to God that I can't deal with. I mean, they're too complex. So what I do is I simply talk. Because sometimes, with a therapist, talking is actually 50% of your success. So talking with God about things that you cannot see any solution to is actually part of the way of seeing some help. And actually, God, that's my experience. If you take these things to God, He will actually give you certain ideas or situations where you will be directed to do this or that. And that's my experience. These things will come from various directions, sometimes from people, sometimes from events, sometimes from books, sometimes from the Bible. But you will find ways. And just to finish, God is not always so excited about your. Sorry, we tend to think that God has one way of life for all of us. I mean, the one way for each. But my experience is that God sometimes gives you a choice. He doesn't actually mind if you choose this or that because He can have both points and He can make you useful and successful in both directions. You see, so at times you do need to ask yourself, what is actually better? What would I prefer? What would I be better? How would I find myself after 5 years in this direction or that direction? And God will just honor that. He say, okay, I would let you ponder, but you make a decision. Thank you so much. I really wish somebody was sitting on Joseph because I was going to say drum roll fees and rotation. Time for audience questions. Does anyone have a question? Because I'm about to try final part on the questions from the panelists, but I really need you guys to answer this one. Some people have got it in chat. You can ask them how do I add time. So it's an option. It's an option. But it's special, right? There are three questions. There is one. My question is, Okay, I don't know if this was, but today also your mouth is okay. When some people very in a very sick bed and they're told to go they know. So sometimes people finances is actually kind of big and it is big and also during next time we bring up uses things right. I want you to do it. I want you to keep this right this time. So now I am doing this Korea. It's not my passion. Like I then now I experience that the big crisis when I but I need so fun. I'm in person and I now see myself making some cool and I did that yes, you should with something like that. Um I was like and
Are you going into drums?
don't know
How's that for you? But why did you need PhD? Like, oh, okay. I mean, like health sector is probably one of those industries where you need to make decisions early to be successful. So I understand your parents. But at the same time, I mean, you have to live with your choices and your parents. Um, right. But, I would, I mean, it's hard to give you advice after like such a short question, not knowing you very well. But from my perspective, like I give you some hints from my own life. Uh, it's always good to be open to what life kind of brings your way, and just look for for opportunities everywhere. And even healthcare. Healthcare is such a broad industry. You can do so many things in healthcare. Like not everybody in healthcare is a surgeon, believe me. So if you have an education that gives you a head start in healthcare, there's many things within healthcare that you can do. Maybe you haven't thought, like maybe you just kind of focus on this is the only thing I can do in healthcare. But healthcare these days is anything from AI to robotics through working with people and entertainment. Like I struggle to find an industry with a broader spectrum of things that you can do there. So before you make any rash decisions, I would advise to kind of, look, is there anything within, because you have, like, think about it this way. You have an unfair advantage if you have a good education to go and work in industry, you know, um, not necessarily as a doctor. Okay, I'm not trying to make my point here, but you can still work in healthcare with healthcare education. You don't have to be, a pharmacist, or a surgeon. But if you already have that understanding of methods.
no, no, no. You're not going to say anything to want to answer. I need us to remember.
So sorry, what's your question, Bert? So, this is. Well, there's wonderful. There's such wonderful listens to medical healthcare. Okay, I heard people, I mean it. Don't try to listen. So you
Um, was it, I mean, please, we're going to ask to the question, but also please remember that time is not our friend, especially as Africans, it's not our friend.
No, so I have going to say that we have really had a good conversation. There's only one business, and there is business in everything. Okay? I think the first step for you is to decide where you want to be, what you want to do, and then draw a line from where you are to where you want to go. Outlining steps, short and long term medium. What are the things you start to do to go in that direction? Are there courses you want to take? Do you want to seek out somebody who's already doing what you desire and talk to them and see how they go to where you are? And what tips and tricks can they give you to navigate from where you are to where you want to be? It's never too late to start again. I know it's easier said than done. Yeah. There's no need to just so you can need to path, but you need to find that path. It's and then start to follow them. Because sitting and listening and not saying that this was not my desire or my desire doesn't help you. You have to path and then walk back.
Thank you so much. And as Stacy navigates the way towards whoever's next, please go ahead.
So I want to ask a question regarding working on the Sabbath. This is seen because for humanity was days it was the same one for example. But so the idea is we come to church Sabbath the basis of going to business what means. So let me give this another way and say let me say that the Bosman service on Saturday for me to get to Bosman. I'll need to get to check. I need to get on to grassly to where to train. This is so much work. So we need to get to church on Saturday. Someone that's so in a way I've contributed to them still. I contributed to them to themselves. Does that completely behave God does he really in the same regard or give more action towards I knew when I knew someone was how it ultimately was right. There are problems. You know, lifestyle cannot avoid things in your life. If you want to go to divine service and you have there's you need to find a way to do that. You can try to walk, but it will take quite a long time. So you need to plan ahead. Uh, that's part of life. I would say what God says or God wants us to think. That's how I understand it. It's my personal understanding. Is that you do what you can to avoid breaking the Sabbath or making other people be busy on the Sabbath. But if there are things you cannot avoid, you shouldn't blame yourself for them because otherwise, if you do not go on a tram or on a bus, you won't get to the church. So obviously, it's part of life. So I mean, God said that the Sabbath is for man. So we shouldn't go too far with this. I would say that as long as you're honest and you do as much as you can, as you know, as with your preparation day, if you do this a lot of stuff on Friday, I mean as much as you can. That's okay. And then whatever is left, some necessities we do on the side. So I think it's the same. It's the same principle. I guess it would be different if you had a chauffeur and you made it work from Sabbath to take you to church. That's different, right? Because he's your every control his time is better. Thank you. Unless you go both together because he was your brother.
In that line of thinking, what if I was just friends?
I mean, he's already there, right?
But we're speaking from he's not going to work and he feels guilt because somebody else is working for him to observe the Sabbath, right? But now what if I'm the driver who should help other people is to change? You know? When I'm a Uber driver who assists others to observe the Sabbath, I was like,
That's like, yeah. The commandment says you should make your employees work for anybody within the gates. I think it's the commandment is very specific for a reason. See, unless you're from,
thank you so much. For
This one's so this celebrating on Saturday business position that I forgive changes on allocating additional spend. Since they are using serving other people, they can reconcile my experience. So yeah, the big centralizing struggling users. So then we can replace the any other motivations we see is that I think this was way involve people, but it does see me that this is a
okay,
perhaps, hospital, someone needs to take care of people in hospital, even on the Sabbath. So you wouldn't plan surgeries on the Sabbath. Go out and put someone to be there.
else? Next question.
Thank you. I think from where you he's already the hospital. I wish we should questions should be asked ourselves such that we can move in moving forward saying why did it was not sometimes conduct it was through inner house division. The land process is not something which I think will later. So we live on one stage for another, everything as demands carriages if as I was sold as you are las equations remain the same or they get what the shape or staying percent. How did you not answer that question?
Just a little clarity before we answer, because the question is that life is a process and life will continue going. Do the questions change as I reach different stages in life, or are the questions still the same? Do I still ask myself the same question I asked myself when I was 20 or when I was 76?
I think not many questions are the same. But the life is very dynamic and the path, like you have to be very flexible. I work in an industry where AI is something that is most of you probably are not affected by AI slash the IT industry is extremely affected. And it completely changes the whole industry. Like it works completely different than year before. Like if you make your career decisions, like you think because there's strategic questions and there are tactical questions, right? The strategic questions are the big questions, but the tactical questions you have to ask yourself very often, because you have to navigate within the changing environments. Yeah, so I think you want to. For questions, questions on principles don't change. Whether you the files to be the servers to be the slums or whatever. You have to first start with the foundation. Yeah. And then once you set the foundation right, then you can do whatever else you want to do on top of it. Questions like why this is thing called the decision use stay no matter what state you are in carrying. Use really someone who can examine what happens to you. My role, my race of my girls is standard Italian cancer and the other state. several variables and growing up with these supporters of themselves. So from the necessary pressure. So the fundamental questions are there, but never think now as a society investigate where we want to take AI consists to adapt it to my current role, or do I still go to opportunities and potential to my job in another 5 years? Those are practical questions in digital background.
Yes, next question. So, you see, guys, the way divide works, you also need to be a bit loud. You might need to enunciate so that it can be linked. Okay, so I think we start with okay, you things. And it's also put the line across your mouth. Yes. A bit closer. Closer, come on. Okay, so it's so the thing is to take to relocate to maybe not but they don't think so. Even kids. But if they don't get the check. So it's very valuable. Create now application and we'll be trying to apply Lama. So it was trying to do I don't know, explain big to our country, it's like small seems hard to stand on that speaking language. So and is that so one thing we say again.
Okay, so you need sort of an advice on how to navigate that kind of it's quite difficult thing. Uh, just like Lucas was saying, it's just kind of like, but I guess my advice to you would be sometimes, just like you must say, sometimes you just need to adapt and find ways where you can be able to survive as well. I actually found myself in a difficult situation as well. I also found myself stuck in a role that I didn't like as well. But at the end of the day, it was very treacherous. Formation ways and the Lord and your path straight. That was everything.
Sorry, the question is about choosing your country, right?
No, she studied nursing.
Or
She finished nursing, and after she finished nursing, she was about to go to the UK. Things changed, and people go to the UK. And then she tried to learn another language so that she could work within her career path, but it's still not working, and she feels stuck.
right. I mean, it's a fellow immigrant, right? Because I most of my work life I was an immigrant. The context where you live is extremely important, and there are countries which make it easier. There are countries that make it less easy. Okay, and as a Polish person, I can say Poland is a wonderful country, but it's a demanding country, right? It demands your like Polish people are kind of difficult to live with. But once you cross certain boundary, they're the most lovely people. Uh, but there is a boundary that you need to cross, and it requires you to make. There are countries where this is not required, but I would say they're less rewarding. And a number of people that I've met in my life, there are certain countries where you can never feel. And when I was in China, my first son was born in China. Okay. And I know that regardless of how long we lived in China, he was never going to be considered Chinese because he looked different. Okay. There are countries that don't make that difference. And it's easier for people to kind of go there, settle there, live there for forever, right? And this is the fundamental question, really. Like if you choose to leave your mother country or fatherland or however you call it, some of them are very interesting. Some countries call it motherland and some countries fatherland. So when you made that decision, like, what sort of plan you had in mind? Is it like 5 years, 10 years, or forever? Because when you come to that decision, that will change the way you think about what you need to do. Because if it's just about the job for a couple of years, if I was you, I would find a country that pays the most. It makes it easiest to start. Okay. And then I'll do whatever else. But if my thinking is this is kind of where I settle, okay? I look for the country where it makes it really work if I make the effort. And is it even possible? I knew when I went to China that it was impossible to settle there. If you go to Dubai or Middle East, it's the same story. Like you cannot settle there. You can be there for 20 years, but at some point you need to go back. And that's fine. I mean, when I was going, this is what I had in mind. I'll go there for a couple of years and then go back. So, those are the questions that you need to be asking yourself. Like what do I need? Like, why am I, why not my country? Why did I do that? Because and you need to be honest with yourself. Like, because when you answer that question, then you know what to do.
Thank you so much. Before I get into the next audience question, before I get into the next audience question, because I have this question before my actual final question, right? But as we cover this before we continue the audience questions. Now, all of us are already working. I work in a company where it was only female, but it was also a black female. So there were only two black people. And after the moment I was already fighting my race and just being black. I was fighting the race that I am a woman as well, right? The general idea is that in our different workplaces, we have, other aspects of our careers that will come that we cannot control. So I was in a lot of pictures, the black female, and at times it's going to be racism, at times it's going to be sexism, at times gender really could be anything. So the most important thing for me was that there was this one day where this chant was not read through the bedroom. It was like, Jesus. And when Jesus in the table moment when it was like, that's began because you don't want this, people want to you taking advantage. Right? But the general question, because I'm trying to make sure that I ask everything all at once, is we are already a group. How do I deal with some of the things I'm going to face in racism in my career? Or how have you guys dealt with certain things that are now outside of just, I found my career, I found a company and but these people, they don't like me.
Journey is important. Ultimately, while you are working, you're actually building a certain company. And that company is you incorporated. Yeah, the name of the concept. You are attracted what matters. So you are attracted to service. The which is why it's important that you are adding so much value to yourself. You are seeking out opportunities to learn, continue to improve to the extent that when you are in such a situation where it becomes clear that you no longer want with that space, your confidence, to use out and look for someone else. Yeah. For example, will do my first point. Are you building yourself enough? Do you have value in yourself enough? Can be able to accept that way? Secondly, also, you have to be having value within that unit different company that you are working to. If you are not value added, for example, the first bottom team, there was TI. So
you know, several musicians because of TDI. Yeah, and so I was in that kind of situation. Of course, you know, people, because everybody don't know, really again, yeah, exactly. So you have to really get everybody to where you are. Something needs to be known. I need them respect for what you are able to do. You know, sometimes you feel that they're seeing over your head. That no matter how hard you try, just when you're watching sort of your skin, there's a certain limit. You know, when I heard these guys were alone, especially in Europe, there are not too many people that look like me that can find you and say, but so I expect that. You know, so that's something might happen. Yeah. Like, feedback on product was like say, getting things that might happen. Yeah, she might help for them second out to the thing. You know, it's very, yeah, it's so, yeah, I'm going to want to just continue this thought because this is important because this is the right attitude. Okay, and for everybody listening, this is the right attitude. Because, I mean, the DEI, you know, for those who don't know, yeah, DEI stands for diversity, inclusion, and equity, right? But over the years, people started to decipher it different areas, okay? And and for a good reason in a way. So what you said is the fundamental thing. Not the way it's look when we watch you free, slow, rational business. Use that first. If you, and forgive my French, asshole, okay? No one's gonna like to work with you even if you're professional and despite how you look. If you make the big deal out of that, it may seem like I'm Polish, okay? When I went to UK in 2005, I heard Poles were treated as a completely second class citizens. Trust me, I totally understand. Okay? But those who were kind of thinking about this, and all the rest, they're working hard, you know, kind of leading with what they like playing their own race. All of them get appreciated. Okay? So this is the fundamental thing. This is it. You know, if you want to be employed, okay, think about the businessman. What will the businessman look for in the employee? Well, the economical calculation is simple. I pay this person this much. Can this person bring more value than I pay? If yes, then I keep that person. If no, I get rid of that person because otherwise I have to, you know, pay out of pocket. Okay. So this is a simple economical calculation. And especially in this country, everybody sees Poles are racist or sexist or whatever. Whatever. They are. So what? I mean, nobody owes you anything. Okay? Nobody deserves anything for just being. That's the truth of the matter. This is how the world works. I don't deserve anything in China. I mean, they don't care about me. Not in Japan. Just not. Like, you have to get rid of that thinking. What she's saying is absolutely fundamental. This is the right message. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, you guys were excited in the end. Maybe like three chances to ask questions, you didn't ask questions, and then at the end you wanted to be fun. So you're going to suffer for your lack of fairness. Now this question, that is going to be the last question. When you're not allowed to do that, anyways, ask your question and then you start talking for 30 minutes long. Now just take one word question. You know what? One word question. It's just one word repeat. No. For the answer. No. That's not my answer.
How would you define success? And as you think about this, thank you so much, everybody, for your positiveness, for the smiles, for fighting that sleep that's turning you to go to sleep, so you can listen to the wise words that have come to you today. But the best part is they're going to be available all weekend. So I'm giving you permission. I'm giving you permission to put one of them aside and get advice and continue this career for students. So, in one word, how would you define success?
Fulfillment. Use of my
Pastor, Pastor. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing details.
sense.
Sense. Yes.
Values.
Value. And authenticity.
Word.
A word.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for today's career session. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and hopefully next time you will get more time. Thank you so much.
Yes, as well.
Thank you. Thank you for it. All God, the time. So we're going to take a 5 minute break. Parents time, stretch, and then you will come up for the next one. 5 minutes.
Alright. Oh yeah.
So even as our time is up already, we will entreat all of us to kindly take our seats so that the next program can continue. Our breaks are over already. We are kindly entreated to take our seats so that the next programs can continue. It is the Sabbath of the Lord. Yeah, so the next program is just about starting. We would like to sing, even as we would welcome the Sabbath. We will sing 388. Don't forget the Sabbath. Okay, let's start.
When is it working already? Oh wait, you may not need to clear this case because it's one of the. Can you try now? Yeah, that's whatever is speak, whatever state you are speaking there. Okay, you can see it already, right? I just want to clear all this. Ah, okay. You want to click through it. Yeah, there you go. Like that, like that. Okay, so okay. Can you hold the camera? Okay, let's change. Let's take out this and choose it. This one is okay. You can leave this one in the back. So you have these songs, you have them separately by seats. Oh, and the Sabbath is in us. Okay, let's bring this one here. Let's open it for try. It is already open. Can you unplug one? The first one. The first one. I think that's. Wait. One is enough because this one is gonna come up. Yeah, just leave one out. So you can adjust it here.
Yeah, yeah.
You can smile because they are gonna see it right now.
No, it's not connected
No,
there.
it's not.
This is yours.
No, it's not. Yeah, but now we still need to lift it up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When people stand,
Yeah.
it's better when it's
Okay, yeah.
the thing.
Yeah, so that's gonna be